Welcome to Elizabeth's Chronicles. If you love true crime, consider subscribing. At 10:15 p.m. on a Saturday in January of 2019, the sheriff's office received an emergency call from someone living in the southern Clackamas County area, in suburban Portland. The caller described a very violent and chaotic situation. According to a 911 dispatcher recording, the dispatcher said this female on the line, that was at this location earlier, said the male used an axe hammer on his mother. She went on to say that Mark Gargo was in the bedroom, and did not have a gun in the bedroom with him, but that his mother was in the living room, covered in blood. The dispatcher also recalled hearing in the recording that the caller said, "He just broke her neck." When deputies arrived on scene, at the 32,000 block of South Barlow Road, they discovered a woman dead outside, which turns out to be his mother, Pamela Denise Bremer, who was 64 years old. Inside the home, down a darkened hallway, there was an overturned wheelchair, and the body of Gargo's 66-year-old stepfather, Jerry Bremer. His head had been decapitated. It looked like somebody had a blower, with red paint, and just coated the walls, Deputy Ariel told detectives. "Oh my God," he remembered thinking, "what has happened in this house?" The scene was so horrific, that Deputy Castro advised others on his team not to enter unless absolutely necessary. "I wanted to make sure that, people didn't have to have the images that I see every single day, he told investigators. "It's horrible." The home was cluttered. And amongst the debris, deputies saw numerous swords and guns. Immediately they heard a cry from a little girl in the back. She was clearly in distress. "Hey, come out to us," Deputy Ariel remembered calling out. The girl said she wasn't alone, and couldn't leave. The deputies walked down the hallway, past the body of Gargo's stepfather, toward a bedroom, where the voice came from. Once there, they noticed the little girl in a hostage hold by Gargo. She was in front of him with his arms around her neck. Both Gargo and the little girl turned to look at the deputies. Gargo immediately yelled out, "They lied to me." In between all of this, Gargo was snarling in a creepy, evil voice, saying, "No." The deputy recalled. Sanders noticed that Gargo tightened his arm around the girl's neck. His muscles tightened, and swelled around her neck, showing he was actively trying to kill her. Gargo was about 6 feet away from the deputies. "Everything was telling me that he was gonna kill that little girl," Deputy Castro said. "I couldn't tell you what she was wearing, or what he was wearing or anything like that, but I remember her looking terrified." Ariel recalled that he quietly weighed the options. "I just remember thinking, don't screw this up," Ariel told detectives. The deputies opened fire, killing Gargo. "And the next thing I know," he said, "I couldn't tell you whether a deputy grabbed her, whether the dude threw her, or whether God frickin' caused an event to occur, but that girl went from being in his control, to being literally like at my thigh on the bed in front of me. She landed face down." Deputy Davis grabbed the frightened girl, and handed her to Sergeant Brad O'Neill and said, "Get her out of here." Later on, the little girl's father told detectives that his daughter described being in her bedroom, right before Gargo entered. She heard her mother crying. Gargo was yelling, and her baby sister was crying. She said then everything fell quiet, then she heard something dripping in the hallway. Not long after, Gargo entered her bedroom, with bloody hands, holding an axe, grabbed her by the hair, and held her against the wall. He was strangling her. A noise from down the hallway caused him to briefly release his grip, which gave her a moment of relief, so she could catch her breath. Right after, police entered the room, and yelled "freeze." That's when he gripped her neck tightly, and began strangling her again. Then police fired, killing him. Inside they found his stepfather dead, Jerry Bremer, and Pamela Denise Bremer, his mother, outside in the yard, as well as his 9-month-old baby daughter, Olivia Lynn Rose Gargo, and his girlfriend, China E. Schweitzer, age 34, all dead from head trauma. Once she was out of the room, she was handed over to firefighters, and placed in the back of an ambulance, who then took her to Willamette Falls Hospital in Oregon City. The little girl, exhausted from her horrific ordeal, fell asleep in the back of the ambulance, on the way to the hospital. There was also a roommate, 40-year-old Tracy Burbank, who lived with the family that suffered injuries that were not life-threatening. She was treated at the hospital, then released the same day. The roommate described her ordeal. Burbank told authorities that she woke up from sleep, and Gargo was swinging an axe at her. At first, she thought he was just playing. But he continued to swing it at her, hitting her once in the back. She lifted a leg, and he struck her again, in the pelvis area. She said when she attempted to get away from him, he climbed on her back, and began biting her. She said she cried out in pain for help, but nobody came. She eventually was able to get away from Gargo, and ran out of the home. She was barefoot, and on the way out, stepped on broken glass. On the way out of the home, she noticed Pamela Bremer's body. A statement was released to the public on behalf of Tracy Burbank that says, "I appreciate all the support I have received in the last few days. I ask that you please respect my privacy, while I look for a way to move on with my life. I will not be accepting any requests from the media for statements or interviews. Please allow me the time and space to heal and move forward." Gargo had a run-in with the law before. He had been arrested on an unlawful possession of a weapon. According to toxicology reports from the Oregon Medical Examiner's Office, Gargo had methamphetamine, alcohol, and marijuana in his system. People who knew, and were related to Gargo, said that he was unstable, and loved guns and knives, and that he was known to use drugs previously. He had a tumultuous relationship with his mother. During the investigation, police found a notebook in his bedroom, which had writings in it similar to a goodbye letter, in which he addressed to his family. On the day of the killings, he had just started a new cleaning job where he detailed cars at a business in Salem. He had brought home pizza for the family that day. One was sitting in the oven when police arrived. Family members for the 8-year-old said Gargo had gradually turned more violent in the last few weeks. According to social media posts from the couple, Gargo and his girlfriend had planned on moving out of his parents' home and into their own. Schweitzer had recently texted her ex-boyfriend, and the father of the 8-year-old girl who survived, that he had tried to strangle her. She also posted numerous social media messages that described something was wrong that day. Sergeant Jensen described the crime scene as horrific. He said, "Every investigator I've talked to that's been inside the residence cannot explain just how horrific the scene is. It's a traumatic scene just to see," Jensen said. "This is a tough one, and we want to make sure our folks are going to be okay when this is all done. I've talked to investigators, 20-year veterans, and they're saying this is a shocking scene," Jensen said. Jensen said everyone involved in the fatal shooting was placed on paid administrative leave, which is department protocol for officer-involved shooting investigations. John Presner, 44 years old, was on active duty in the Coast Guard, serving as an electronics technician first class, at Coast Guard Base Miami Beach. He has been with the Coast Guard since March of 2001. John is married to 39-year-old Gretchen. The couple had 2 beautiful children, 8-year-old McKenna, and 7-year-old John Jr. The family lived in their suburban home near Homestead, west of Florida's Turnpike, on the far southern edge of Miami. John and Gretchen got into a heated argument. Gretchen retreated upstairs, and into the bedroom. John followed her. They entered and shut the door. At the time, Gretchen's mother, Mary, was at the home visiting. She was in the restroom. She heard Gretchen say, "No, John." She exited the restroom, and went into the bedroom. She tried to get between the two, but John pointed a gun at her head. Her daughter stepped in front of the gun and told her mother to run, and get help. She fled to a neighbor, and told them to call police. The family's neighbor said they heard a couple of shots and a lady screaming for help, then a knock on their door. At 12:41 a.m., on December 16, 2018, the Miami-Dade Police Department responded to a call. The officers entered the residence. Inside they found Gretchen, and the couple's 7-year-old son, John Jr., dead from gunshot wounds to the head. Prisoner was also deceased from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The couple's daughter, 8-year-old McKenna, also received a gunshot wound to the head, but was miraculously still alive. She was airlifted to Nicholas Children's Hospital, in critical condition. Neighbors were in disbelief. One neighbor said, "They all seemed like a really nice family. They were always outside with their kids." U.S. Coast Guard Lieutenant Commander Ryan Kelly said, "The Coast Guard is deeply saddened by this tragedy, and our hearts go out to the family members of those who were killed. We continue to pray for, and offer the full support of the Coast Guard to the young child fighting for her life." McKenna held on for 9 days. On Christmas Day, instead of opening presents as most families do on this holiday, she was passing away from wounds inflicted by her own father. This incident is a tragedy that impacts an entire community. We all mourn when these tragic events occur, Miami-Dade Police Director Juan Perez said. He went on to say that domestic violence is not easy to prevent, but as a community, we can do our part by raising awareness to encourage families to seek help when needed. Mark Gargo destroyed his life with drug use, then allowed his life to escalate out of control, to the point he murdered his own family, in a drug-induced rage. Sadly, innocent people's lives were taken far too soon. John Presner appeared to be a well-respected man who was serving in the U.S. Coast Guard. However, people on the outside could not see that a monster lurked beneath the illusion he showcased for the public. In the end, the monster came out, and annihilated his entire family. That concludes this episode of Family Annihilators Who Predate Chris Watts. Keep your eye out for Volume 16, coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.